Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me all right? Just put your finger in the air if you can. Great. So we have the wonderful opportunity to meet again with Reverend Onryu Kennedy, well known to me also by the English translation of that name, which is Gentle Dragon, or GD. Many of us know GD, but I like to review the backgrounds to start with. So GD was ordained in 2012 by Byakuren Roshi Judith Ragir in the Katagiri lineage. She is studied at Tassajara for 2 different years at the Toshoji International Zen Center in Japan. And in 2021, she received transmission from Reverend Eido Reinhart in the Kosho Uchiyama Roshi lineage, and has been invited to participate in zuise once travel restrictions are lifted, but also during one of her practice periods was Shuso in Japan. Throughout her life, she's valued social justice work as an expression of her Bodhisattva vow. She was one of the leaders at Clouds and Water Zen Center from 2010 until 2021. And there she helped to bring Fleet Maull and also coordinated an Interfaith Bearing Witness retreat conference in 2016, a Winyan Awanyankapi Protecting the Lifegivers Conference in 2019. And she has also been a lifelong, almost 22 years, worker with children and families. And has also completed a year-long training of Engaged Buddhism at Upaya Zen Center. Welcome, GD, Onryu, good friend, and I'm turning it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction. Beautiful. I just want to take a minute here to breathe with everybody and wish you an excellent good morning on this beautiful, almost summer day. It's tomorrow, the equinox or the solstice. And I want to really send out deep gratitude to Hokioji for the invitation to offer the teachings on what I've been learning. Yeah, it's a great gift, and I deeply appreciate this time. I also would like to say Happy Father's Day to everybody. It's a great day, and I think being a father extends beyond parenting and includes parenting. Being a teacher, being a guide, being a mentor, it's all very, very important for the children and the young people. I'd also like to recognize and say happy Juneteenth Day. Tomorrow is a federal holiday commemorating the emancipation of enslaved African Americans. And I think it's important history for me and for all beings, because it's kind of twisted. It involves President Lincoln, who has, as we all do, very dynamic karma. So I invite you, when you have a moment, to just investigate what is Juneteenth in relationship to freeing African American peoples and all beings. And I say that understanding that I am developing what I learned as a social worker is cultural humility, which is different than cultural competence. I humbly say that I will never be competent when it comes to culture. It's inconceivable and endless investigation, particularly as a white Zen priest. So cultivating cultural humility invites me to enter into this space with a don't know mind, not an ignorant mind necessarily, though it can be ignorant, but just an openness of not knowing and being willing to learn. So I just want to bring that forward. And before I offer a dedication, I want to say my plan is to only talk for a half hour and then open it up to everyone. Because I view this as a conversation where we can learn from each other and refine each other's views. Part of the Eightfold Path is wise view. And in order to cultivate that, what I've come to understand is we really need each other. And we need to invite each other's voices into spaces. So please, I just invite you to bring your voice into the conversation. So with that, I just want to do a dedication and acknowledgement and then go forward ongoingly. I just want to acknowledge that this is Anishinaabe and Dakota homeland. And I further acknowledge the experience of Indigenous nations in relation to genocide through boarding schools, the denial of practicing cultural and spiritual ways, and the displacement of land and home through land theft. I want to honor and pay homage to Buddhas and ancestors, and specifically offer homage to our Japanese ancestors and teachers, including our Chinese, Korean, and all Asian American ancestors who transmitted this teaching here. I also want to acknowledge Eido Roshi for his great compassion and wisdom in supporting me and other students that many of you know while participating in the Angos at Toshoji Zen Monastery in Japan. I want to pay homage to my friends and our families and to all seen and unseen beings. I have deep gratitude. So thank you. I would like to continue. Last time in May, I brought forward what is a koan for me. Does Zen need a center? And And that center can involve one's own center, the center in which I emerge my life force from. The center can mean wherever I am is the center, wherever you are is the center. And it can mean this center, Zen centers as a community. So this has been a very emerging investigation for me. And I just want to be transparent. I've reached no conclusions. So if any of you feel after this talk that you have a conclusion, please bring that forward. I am very curious. So if any of this material is a repeat, for those of you that were part of the conversation in May, my apologies. It's kind of like life, repeating itself, or karma. But sometimes it lands a little differently. So I want to just bring up specific salient points, I think, from that talk, which kind of blends into this talk, and also bring forward Dogen Zenji's fascicle in the Shobogenzo, Odai Sata Shishobo. I think that's very relevant to the current ongoing conditions of the suffering world. So untangling these knots of the three poisons of greed, anger, / hatred, and delusion / ignorance. These three poisons that we experience within ourselves, within others, within the world in which we live. How do we untangle these knots and compost them to transform this energy in a way that benefits us and all beings? What I am finding is it's important to take care of historical karma, which sometimes can be blown fully into trauma. And I feel that for myself, in bearing witness in the world in which we live, trauma is a natural response to many of the conditions that are arising today, politically, climate conditions, racial justice, and our own personal lives. So I think for me, what's important is to understand that this is a natural response, and how to work with that energy in a way that does harm reduction, not increasing the harm, which is important. And that's why it's important too to have good friends Good friends can give feedback and help. And those good friends aren't necessarily Buddhists. Good friends can be a river or the wind or the sun. So I'd like to talk about Zazen, because what I'm finding is that without Zazen, for me, helping myself in the suffering world is near impossible. And I've been reading several books that are just really resonate with. I continue to read this beautiful book, Approach to Zen by Kosho Uchiyama Roshi, and the Zen Teaching of Homeless Kodo, and the Zen Teaching of Homeless Kodo, which includes commentary by Okamura Roshi. So I'd like to offer, in the connection that I have with Sawaki Roshi, and comes from, it's a lineage. So it's Sawaki Roshi, Uchiyama Roshi, Okamura Roshi, Eido Phoebe, Osho, and then me. So there's this line, just like with Katagiri Roshi, Joan, Osho, and Byakuren Roshi, and then me. So these two streams run through me in that way, and I feel very blessed. So I'm offering Sawaki Roshi a teaching that he brought forward in Zen Teaching of Homeless Kodo. He says, everybody bears their own karma, but it is important that we are all led by Buddha. Shinjin Dai Su Raku, casting aside body and mind, means that we throw away our egos, believe Buddha's teaching, and are led by Buddha. This Shinjin Dai Suraku, dropping body and mind, comes from Tendo Nyojo, Dogen Zenji's teacher. And this is a koan. This is a koan that when I was Shuso at Toshoji, that Seido Roshi gave me for the Hosen Shiki ceremony to present. So I would just like to offer it to you. Master Nyojo of Mount Tendo instructed, Zen practice is dropping off body and mind, offering incense, making prostrations, reading texts, and chanting Buddha's names and sutras. These are all unnecessary for the true practice of Zen. Shikantaza is the only way. What is this shikantaza? And what is this dropping off body and mind? That is a beautiful, beautiful investigation. And my experience has been, it's nothing less than taking off the first layer of skin of my body to drop off body and mind. And what do I mean by that? As Sawaki Roshi said, letting go of your ego. No small matter for any of us. So I want to just say that with great compassion, and I'm grateful for the teachings of these teachers to be able to develop wisdom. Hi, Ken. Good to see you. It's okay. We're all late. Geez, I have 10 minutes. I better rush. Just kidding. So this, with Shikantaza, it's actually waking up to our lives. And in Zazen, Uchiyama Roshi has a beautiful diagram. I don't know if you can see it, but that's it. And the diagram is a line, and that line is our Zazen line, where we're sitting upright in the Buddha Mudra with body and mind. And in that upright position, thoughts, feelings, sensations arise. So we're on this line humming, and thought arises. Maybe thought like it's hot. And then another thought, I'm thirsty. And then it's like, boom, I'm thinking, come back, opening the hand of thought, come back to the body, come back to the posture. I'm humming along. I'm sleepy. I'm starting to doze. I'm starting to be like a helicopter. Oh, I realize I wake up and I come back to Zazen. So what he's saying that this is going on all the time in our Zazen. And when we come back to just the self settling on itself, that is awakening in the moment. There's another I'm feeling the need to move on because I want to talk about this fascicle in relationship to a center. This fascicle, I'm using Okamura Roshi's translation, The Bodhisattvas for Embracing Actions. This was written by Dogen Zenji in 1943. And there's this beautiful intersectionality, I think, between the Brahma Viharas and these four practices, the four Bodhisattva embracing actions, these four actions. And I don't have enough time, nor have I studied it deep enough to articulate. And I do believe that there is a connection because the Brahma Viharas are immeasurable and they are internal practices that soften the heart, soften the mind. And then the four Bodhisattva actions are bringing that into our daily lives. And I think it offers potency for us when we come from a place that is more, well, without saying, is more open to possibilities. And if the self is settling on itself, then there's this total dynamic functioning going on. And there is no center, because the center involves all beings, all things, all conditions interacting minute by minute by minute, or second by second by second. Everything's arising, presenting, dissolving. So that's constantly going on. So these 4 actions are giving, loving speech, beneficial action, and identity action. And that's why part of what I believe is this is what I would call engaged Buddhism, that was coined by Thich Nhat Hanh in the mid-60s. And I think Dogen Zenji is saying, because he's saying in this fascicle that this is our practice in our lives. They're not separate. So I just want to start with giving. Giving in Okumura Roshi's translation is giving or offering means not being greedy. Not being greedy means not to covet. Not to covet commonly means not to flatter. And I think that is really essential, and cultivating this generosity, which is as many of us know, is a paramita. And doing that in a way where giver, receiver, and gift are all empty. And Katagiri Roshi, in his book, Returning to Silence, also talks about these 4 Bodhisattva actions. And he says that giving there's 3 kinds in Buddhism: giving of material, giving of teachings, and giving of fearlessness. I have about 5 minutes. One of the things that Katagiri Roshi said in his giving of materials is that monks didn't have materials, so they couldn't offer materials, but they could offer the Dharma, and they could offer fearlessness. And I think that as lay people, we can offer all 3. Unless somebody here is living in a monastery that I'm not aware of. But if you are, that's what Katagiri Roshi says, and I kind of agree with him. So giving fearlessness, and this fearlessness is it's a facing of one's own fear in order to move through that. So it's important to know that this is not a bypass, it's a going through. So this fearlessness, there's 4 kinds of fearlessness. Fearlessness arising from wisdom of boundless interconnectedness. Fearlessness from bearing witness to one's character and getting feedback on one's character and transforming it. Fearlessness arising from acknowledging duality and working with the dualities of life with equanimity and without spiritual bypass. And D, fearlessness arising from the end of suffering, understanding and investigating the 4 noble truths and walking the noble 8-fold path. The second action is loving speech, offering comfort to beings through loving speech. And loving words go beyond hatred. And this love is not in opposition of hatred. I think that's very, very important. We love those who we have affinity with, and we hate those beings who we don't. This love is based on causes and conditions. The love that I believe Dogen Zenji is talking about is a love that's larger than the self, is in relation to the Indra's net, to our interconnectedness. There's a person, and this is an endless process. There's a person who I recently listened to a TED Talk, Valerie Kerr, K-A-U-R. She said many skillful things in this talk. One of the things that struck me was, she said, forgiving is not about forgetting. It is the freedom from hatred. And I was like, wow, that is beautiful. So we begin where we are in relation to the causes and conditions and who is before us, tending to the places within us that need attention to show up in a good way. So that doesn't mean we're offering loving speech to a perpetrator or a person that has victimized us. There's wisdom and discernment, and tending to our own wounds, our own processes. And then there's beneficial action, skillful action with body, speech, and thought. Body, thought, and speech, actually. Because the mind, our actions come from our mind, and so does our speech. This skillful action emerges from the seeds of my life force as a white Zen priest. I recently have participated in courses offered at the East Bay Meditation Center, and they have agreements for multicultural interactions in the community. It's really beautiful. These agreements are created by Visions, the organization. As a white person, this offers a way of participating that is in alignment in a multicultural space and supports beneficial actions within that space beyond for me and for all beings. And then the last one is identity action. Clearly seeing the nature of beings with the eye of wisdom and compassion and responding in a helpful way. This is like Avalokiteshvara with many arms and many hands and an eye on each hand and a tool to support the well-being of all beings. And these 4 actions are included in all 4 actions. So there's actually 16 actions. And I just want to give, I have a lot of examples, but because of time, excuse me, I just want to give a couple. And one is from earlier this year. I never met this woman, Dr. Paula Green. And there's a video from the Buddhist Action Coalition where she gave a speech, a talk. She's a beautiful human being. She passed in February, which I'm sad about in many ways. She started the Karuna Center for Peace Building. She was an engaged Buddhist psychologist, and she received the award from the Dalai Lama in 2009 for the Unsung Hero of Compassion. Maybe you've heard of her. I never heard her. she's done a lot. The Karuna Institute, if you look it up, it is an international organization that goes into post-war-torn countries and begins to build dialogue between people. And this organization only goes into these places if they're asked, which I think is very significant. In 2016, she and her colleagues, after the election, were stunned because the community in which she lives is a white liberal community. And they were like, what did we miss? So from this question, they developed what is called Hands Across the Hills. And it's a conversation, a dialogue between rural Kentuckians who are conservative and Trump people, and people in her community who are liberal Democrats. And there was a whole process that she and her colleagues went through to develop this relationship with these Kentuckians. And this process, I feel, is an example of what these 4 embracing Bodhisattva actions look like. So giving, one of the things that happened is that both the Kentuckians and the Massachusetts folks opened their home up to each other. So the Kentuckians came to Massachusetts and stayed in people's homes and had conversations. To me, when you open up your home to really strangers, that's incredible. The second thing was the second action is loving speech. They had these dialogues. If you watch the video, you'll see these dialogues are very intense, very intimate, and there was deep listening. It wasn't easy. Beneficial action, they took care of each other, building authentic relationships based on the shared humanity that they wanted to work towards peace and understanding. And the fourth, identical action, the acknowledgement of the suffering, that it's a human experience. It's everybody, all beings, rocks, trees, humans, dogs, cats, frogs, everyone experiences suffering. And I want to offer that and give voice to that possibility that these actions can be done in real time. Not only can they be done, they're necessary. So with that, I just want to close and say, I want to close with this this writing from Sonia Renee Taylor, which you may have heard of it. I think it's quite beautiful. We will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal, other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature. Thank you. So I just want to open it up to everybody to bring your voice into the conversation. and it felt a little rushed, but I wanted to make sure that people had an opportunity.
Onryu?
Oh, Joe,
Hi.
how are you?
So good to see you this morning. Thank you for your wonderful talk. I really appreciated it so much. And I just have a kind of a brief question, and that is, where did you find the information on the 4 kinds of fearlessness?
Oh, that was in Katagiri Roshi's
Oh,
book, Returning to Silence.
okay, great. Yeah.
Is there anything that struck you? Any comments that you have?
Well, I really appreciate your giving examples of like beneficial action. And that's really helpful to me. And yeah, just bringing in different references and that whole example you just gave about the people in Kentucky and Massachusetts, that was just so spot on for me.
Okay, I want to say one thing I didn't say is that the Kentuckians, one of the most profound things that Dr. Paula Green said about that connection was the Kentuckians thought that people in Massachusetts did not suffer. And
Interesting.
yes, and when they experienced that, there was a connection. I mean, yeah.
That's so powerful, and we rarely hear examples of that working, you know, of people from different poles being able to really come together and be open and learn from each other. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for being present. I appreciate you.
I have a question also about the Kentuckians and Massachusetts. And that is what brought about Kentuckians going to Massachusetts? In other words, I'm trying to picture this. People in my district in Minnesota going to a whole different state, because this district that Hokioji is in is clearly very Republican oriented, despite the fact that also there's enough mixture of views and combination with candidates that run for office that they elected our current governor as their representative, and he's a Democrat and leading the state, at least for the time being. So how did that happen?
They did what I call as reconnaissance. They did a lot of research on the area, and they also were fortunate in that there was a young Jewish man who had been in that area working with people, not specifically around political issues, but around climate and social. So he had a relationship with this community, and Dr. Green and him developed a relationship, and then Dr. Green went down with a couple of her colleagues, friends, and begun the conversation. And it was a developing of relationships. And I think that's essential. If any change is to occur, It's developing relationships. And that doesn't mean that a relationship, like I'm going in there, I have my ideas on how this is going to work and what's it going to look like and blah, blah, blah. No, it's about going into the space with Bernie Glassman's 3 tenets. Don't know mind, bearing witness, and see what loving action arises. And boom, it's people respond.
So let me just clarify, if I might. So the people that were instigating this connection and conversation were based in Kentucky or Massachusetts?
Dr. Green is based in Massachusetts. She has extensive, training. She's a Buddhist, number one, and she's a psychologist. And she has extensive training in going into post-war areas and doing dialogue and conversations. And from that, because the community was, her community was stunned that this person could be elected, they're like, what are we missing? Who are these people, right? Not like, who are these people? Are they crazy? Like, who are they? With great curiosity and compassion. We need to get to know them. So it's a process. It doesn't happen quickly. As you probably have experienced at Hokioji, it's a process for the community.
Thank you.
To bear witness to people with bald heads.
GD, at the beginning of your talk, you said, I'm not culturally competent. I think you said I'm trying to be culturally aware. Help me out with the phrase that you used at the beginning.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing that question forward. I did not say I was culturally, or I would say culturally incompetent, though I am. Both are true. I have some understanding and I have a lack of understanding of cultural competency. But I don't want to go there. I do not want to be taking tests on my cultural competency. It creates anxiety in me, actually. And usually I fail. But cultural humility is going into these spaces. There's some things I don't know. Like, I didn't know about Juneteenth. And tonight I'm going into a celebration of Juneteenth. And I'll be going into that space with humility, that I greatly appreciate being in this multicultural space. And I am humbled, and I walk in that way. And thank you very much for inviting me into this circle. So it's a different feel going into this space with cultural humility. And also, it's not a false humility, like I'm a piece of crap entering this space. That's not true either, because I'm not going into this space empty-handed. I'm going into this space with open hands. Is that helpful?
Very much so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaking of Juneteenth, my internet news source is usually CNN that I go to. And a couple of days ago, they had a quiz on Juneteenth. You know, take this quiz, 10 questions. And I thought, okay, I'm going to try. I knew I wouldn't do well, and I did not. I got 4 of the 10 right questions about the history. And the average score was 5.3, I guess, of people who take the quiz. And I have to say, of the 4 I got right, 2 or 3 were wild guesses. just a guess. Like, how many slaves were there, you know, on Emancipation Day? And it's like 3.9, 2.4, 6.5, 5.3. I mean, how do I know? And I just guessed at 3.9, and that happened to be right. But I had no idea. And so anyway, so I failed miserably at 40%. But it felt kind of good to take the quiz. And I went back 2 days later, and then I got a 10 out of 10. So
Did you study?
Yeah. I don't know if I took it again today, if I would remember all the answers, but anyway, you know, it's just things that I don't know about, like who was the first person. It was a guy from Texas who, and I don't remember his name, but who kind of delivered that message. And which amendment was it that was forbidden? Slavery is forbidden in the USA. It was 13 or 14. I can't remember, but it's one of those. So anyway, so yeah, they say, which amendment? 12, 14, 16. Okay, take a guess. I think I got that one right too, by a pure guess. But anyway, so I just thought I'd share that. So if you want to go, on CNN, I don't know if they still have the quiz up, but you can take the quiz if you want. Learn a little bit about it. So
did they ask which president?
Yeah, that's one, you know, one I took a pretty good chance with Lincoln. I said, okay, let's go with Lincoln. Yeah, he, you know, that was the time that they actually made the proclamation. And then they asked which president signed it into law as a national holiday. And I foolishly chose Obama. But obviously, it's not going to be Obama because he's a black man. But it was Biden. Biden signed it into law as a national holiday. So there you go.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your talk, GD.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's really awesome. And we need to encourage each other to do that. Thank you, Dokai.
Yeah. Be ready to fail the quiz. The first time through. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Hello, Ken.
Oh, I'm having a very hard time getting this connection, getting it opened up. And part of it, just so you know, you're at just barely on the bottom of the screen. It would help a little bit if I could see you better, but
can you send me Kyoku?
But anyway, thank you very much for your comments. I really, really appreciated them. I'm glad I could hear as much as I could, which was not all of it, I'm afraid, but
But that's all right. Just making the connection and being there, I really appreciate. Thank you for your talk.
Thank you, and thank you for your presence. Ken is a bodhisattva I aspire to.
So this this connection between the Kentuckians and the folks from Massachusetts requires a pretty elaborate infrastructure and a building up of relationship to enter into some kind of beneficial action. But there's all kinds of beneficial actions which are much more easily approachable. And a lot of people on this forum spend a lot of time keeping Hokioji going, for one thing. So, but I wanted to mention there's a documentary on various streaming services now called We Feed People, which is about the Spanish chef who started World Central Kitchen. And he just decided after the devastating earthquake in Haiti, he would just show up and without much of anything. And he just started feeding people. And he, he asked for money. He asked for this. He found a kitchen, and he's done this and for various disasters all over the world. But the thing that was one of the more interesting things was when he got to Haiti, he knew people ate black beans. So he fixed black beans, and he thought he's a world-class chef. He thought they were the best black beans in the world, but people didn't especially like his black beans because they were not the black beans fixed the way they were culturally used to have fixed. So he talked to the people and he found out that they liked them mashed up a little into a velvety, kind of texture instead of being discrete beans. And so from then on, he's everywhere he goes, he has this kind of cultural sensitivity to providing food that people are used to eating. And it's just remarkable to me. And the documentary goes on and on about various disasters and how this has become a very big deal. And what's interesting to me also is that we have a Minnesota Central Kitchen based on the same tenets, which is a kind of a offshoot of Second Harvest Heartland, but it was actually Minnesota Chow Girls catering service opened up their kitchen, and when the pandemic hit, they offered jobs to 750 laid off restaurant workers. And last year they provided 1.7 million meals to Minnesotans and people in Wisconsin. So, and they're affiliated with Second Harvest. Second Harvest is always looking for volunteers. I also volunteer at Open Arms, and they have medically tailored meals, but they've also just hired people to make culturally tailored meals because they're providing meals to people in different cultures. So this is beneficial action, but it's also sensitive action, and it's pretty easy to plug into that. We don't need this kind of elaborate, slow process of of trying to convince people that we should like each other. If you don't feed people, if people are hungry, nothing much is going to get done in the first place. So that's kind of where I'm coming from these days.
Thank you very much. I want to give an example too of you don't need elaborate infrastructure. Though I gotta say, I lean into that, and I will continue. And given what Rushin said, it's not really sexy, exotic work. Like last summer this time was hot. It was like in the 90s, going to 100 with humidity that was out of this world. And there were people living in between the spaces on the streets and in between green, where they could find grass. And there was an organization that I hooked into where we would just deliver ice to people and water. And it was an amazing experience because it felt like I was delivering money. I was delivering gold, and it was water. It was mind-blowing. And you never know your impact on doing something where it comes from a space of this is just what needs to be done. I was washing a sleeping bag at a laundromat off of Lake Street, and I was waiting outside because I don't really like laundromats. And it wasn't my sleeping bag, it was a camp sleeping bag that needed to be washed. So I was hanging out at this picnic table on Lake Street, and this woman comes by and says, "Hi, how are you?" I said, "I'm great." And she said, "You don't remember me, do you?" I said, "I'm sorry, I don't." She said, you and your friends gave us water at the camp, and I would like to offer this book to you." And she hands me this book, and it's the book that I've been waiting to read for over a year. So I just offer that because you never know. And gift receiver and gift, it's all empty. So I agree with you, Rushin. It doesn't take a lot to do these actions at all. So thank you. Is there anybody here who would like to just bring forward any last words or how the talk landed on you?
I think that's my cue to say, and let's wrap it up. Thank you so much, Onryu. It's always good to have you talk to us. I always take notes and try to put them in a place where I'll remember them. Thank you. So really galvanize our energy, our giving energies. So next Sunday, we're going to have Reverend Jushin Stephen Butcher as a speaker. And let's see, coming up, a couple of things. Next Saturday, we'll have our annual meeting. I think it's at, John, can you remind us where our annual meeting is?
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock. It's at the Washburn Community Library on Lindell Avenue South, about 56th and Lindell Avenue South here in Minneapolis. So 1 o'clock on Saturday, the 25th.
John, I think it's 12:30.
No, it's not.
Oh.
It's
All right.
There was confusion.
Okay.
And between Tim,
I'm out of here.
Okay. Between Tim and I, we got it to 1 o'clock. So anyway, so thank
It's
you.
at 1 o'clock. And is Zoom participation going to be a component?
Yes, it will be. Yes.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Okay. And in July, we'll have the Clouds and Water Zen Center Sesshin, which is a full 7-day sesshin. We have an opportunity to put Onryu's information and encouragement into our community and family weekend, which is coming up in the first week of August. I'm hoping we can invite all the people that in the local community help build our new buildings. And then we have the Jewel Mirror Sesshin, which is led by Hokioji, with our teachers Daigaku and Reiren and Dokai. That's also in August. And in September, Minnesota Zen Meditation Center will be here. And we've just been having a really great success with people wanting to come down and going away, planning to come back. So thanks for all of you, and whatever you're conveying is helping that to happen. So as always, we promote Facebook and Instagram and picture taking when you're here. That social media presence, you'll get to hear at our annual meeting how it's helping our revenue stream. So let's cut to the chase and say there's a link in the chat box if you'd like to offer any dana. And let's close with our usual phrase, our usual dedication through vows. So here we go. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to realize it. Everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you so much, Onryu. Come back soon.
Thank you. Thank you.